Hello, I'm Jonas Cox, Consulting Solution Engineer at Skyline, and today I'll give more information about the use case that we have about scheduling and orchestrating AMP workloads, Grass Valley AMP workloads from DataMiner. This gives more information and visualization to the use case that's already to be found on our Dojo community website created by my colleague Thomas. So let's jump onto the demo system. On the demo system, you see a bunch of apps. In here, I'll first jump into the workflow designer. This will allow us to create a template for the production that is to come. In here, you'll see that there is already a template created for this demo. It contains a couple of resources. Those can be Grass Valley AMP resources, such as a clip layer, a multiviewer, or a live producer. But equally, it can be other technologies, such as a tag multiviewer or a Nimbra output. Next to that, it also contains some offline resources, such as a producer and a cameraman that's required for the production. Next to the resources and the connections between them, the system also allows to add configurations to this workflow. So, for example, a clip to be played, a name for the file recording, and some SRT parameters. So once you have defined this template, we can jump into our scheduling application. And the scheduling application allows in a couple of clicks, basically, to schedule a new production. So let's start off and create a new production with a name. So let's say afternoon news, scheduling for a specific time. So let's say at 2:30 to 15:30. I will select the workflow or the template that we just created in the workflow designer. Next to that, you can also optionally add an organization to this production and a contract. This can later be used for cost and billing purposes. Once you create a production, you'll see that it's created in draft state. That means that it's not confirmed yet, and no orchestration will happen if you don't do anything more with this. Also, it mentions the hand icon that indicates that there are specific actions to be taken still by the user of this application. So if we jump in, you will see some general production information, as well as a list of resources that are required for the production based on what was defined in the workflow. For some of the resources, you will see the red hand icon, and that indicates that in the workflow, we configure those to be selected manually by the user. That's completely up to the user of the system to define which resources are to be selected manually and which are to be selected automatically. Also important to mention, when selecting these resources, the system will only show the available ones. So on the top right, you can also decide to see all of them. In this case, it also shows you the SRT input B, which is already in use for this other production. So let's pick this last one. And now basically all the resources have been selected. Next to selecting the resources, it's also possible to add some configurations on production level. So these are the same configurations that we saw in the workflow designer. And those are, for example, selecting a clip to be played, a file name for the recording, and for example, some SRT parameters, let's say 120 here. Once we have all the configurations set up and all the resources selected, we're basically good to go to start this production. However, it will not happen because it has not been moved to a confirmed state. So let's first move it to tentative. In this case, the resources will start to be reserved. And when we confirm the production, that means that it's basically ready for orchestration to launch when the start time for the production comes. Of course, we will not wait and we'll manually start it to show you the orchestration. But before we manually start, let's go into AMP and show you what we will actually do. So in AMP, let's go to the resource manager. And here we see a list of workloads that are currently in ready state. So they are turned off and they are not configured. So the orchestration will turn them on and configure them correctly. Also on the flow, there were tag resources. So let's jump into our DataMiner tag app, which shows you the outputs from tag, which can represent a multiviewer. And there are 3 such multiviewers configured for this demo, and all of them have a default layout loaded to them. The demo will load another layout and will route the output from AMP to the main tile of that layout. So let's jump back into our scheduling and orchestration tool and manually start this production. So now you see that the production went into a running state, and you will see in AMP that one by one the workloads will start to pop up. Of course, it takes some time for the orchestration engine to do all the checks if something is running, and then set up the right configurations and also check if they are correctly. So let's pause for a minute, and I'll show you all the configurations that the orchestration engine has set. Okay, now that the orchestration engine has finished its work, you can see that all the workloads that have been selected in the scheduling tool within DataMiner have been correctly set to running state, and they will have been configured as well. Let's check the configuration on this recorder, for example, where we configured the file name. You can see that the file name has been correctly set by DataMiner within AMP. Similar for the SRT inputs, for example, we can also check if it has correctly reconfigured the latency for this input. Let's go to configurations, and we'll see here it has indeed been reconfigured to 120. Next to AMP workloads, there are of course other resources in our production in DataMiner, and that was, for example, an AMP tag multiviewer. So let's go back into DataMiner and check which tag multiviewer that was selected. We see that it was multiviewer number 1, and if we go into our tag app, we'll see that if we go to multiviewer 1, the correct layout has been configured onto this output, and that the output transport stream from tag has been routed towards the main tile of the tag output. On the system dashboard within AMP, we can also see that the workloads have been properly connected together by the orchestration engine. So you can see that the clip player, for example, is properly routed together with the SRT input toward both the multiviewer in AMP and the live producer. And similarly, the live producer output is routed towards the output transport stream, and this way towards the tag multiviewer as well, and as well to the elastic recorder. When opening the live producer, we can also see that the input signals are present, and we can start switching video streams. Next to that, when our production is now in a running state, I can also show you that DataMiner has monitoring capabilities. For example, here we show a complete list of all the resources that are within the production, together with their alarm state, if applicable. So this allows you to create an aggregated view on the health status of your production. Next to monitoring, we also have this page, which shows you the control capabilities of DataMiner. So in here, you'll see the clip player for this active production, which is clip player C, and it shows you a bunch of buttons within DataMiner, and under it, an embedded view of GV AMP. To show you that if we click a button within DataMiner, so for example, this play button, it will start the play on the clip player, and it can also stop it. This is by no means meant to replace all the UIs in AMP, which are of course very, very useful. But if you have any use case where you want to combine controls in both AMP with controls in other technologies, DataMiner is the perfect tool to do so. Now that I have shown you the monitoring and the control capabilities, we are basically at the end of what I wanted to show, and we are ready to stop the production. And then when I stop the production, the orchestration engine will kick in again, and it will deconfigure all the AMP workloads. So one by one in AMP, we'll see them being turned off. And at the end, it will also reconfigure the tag multiviewer to a default layout. Now that the production has been stopped, I want to show one last thing, which is the cost and billing side of things. So if I open my finished production, I have this other tab called cost and billing, which shows you an overview of all the cost records that have been calculated based on predefined rate cards per resource in the system. So this shows you the cost records for both AMP workloads, but the main thing is that it can combine it with costs for external technologies to AMP, but also for costs of offline resources. Next to it, it can also contain rules. So for example, a offline resource, being a person here, can only be booked for time slots of 4 hours straight and not for anything less. Those are the costing rate cards, but for example, in this system here, there's also one billing rate card, which you can then use for external billing purposes. This brings me to the end of my demo. I hope this gave a clear overview how you can basically create templates for your productions, to schedule your productions in advance, put all the configurations on there, run your productions, and that will cause the orchestration engine to set up your end-to-end production, to control and monitor your live production from within DataMiner, and also to finalize, do cost and billing calculations based on the data records within DataMiner. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something, and hope to see you back in the next video.